We are going to examine the imperfect tense verbs in a few chapters of Mark's Gospel. Essentially, all I'm going to do is search for imperfects and then discuss how we can identify them as imperfects and what they mean in the context. Starting from Mark chapter 2, the first one we find is elale. Elale. If I double click, you'll see that it's from laleo, which means to speak. The formation is very regular. Oh, excuse that. The formation is regular. Essentially what we have is the augment plus the verb stem, lale, plus the connecting vowel, epsilon, and there's no personal ending but sometimes a movable, nu, for elale. In this case, there's no movable nu, and the two epsilons contract to a. So the meaning is, he was speaking. Kai elale autois ton logon, and he was speaking the word to them. The imperfect indicates that we are looking at durative action in the past time. So the portrait is that for some time he was in the process of speaking the word to them. The next one we find is in verse 4 of chapter 2. It's kat eketo. If I double click on it, you'll see it's from kata kemai. That's a preposition in compound. So our word is kata. That's preposition. And then we have kemai. Kata kemai is a little bit unusual because the personal endings are attached directly to the stem k. When we form the imperfect, we add the augment, which replaces the last letter, and then we add, in the case of the imperfect, we add ta, kateketo, kateketo. This means something like he was lying. He was lying. Notice that it is deponent, it means to lie down. Third person, singular, he was lying. Who's he? Ho paralytikos, kat eketo. The paralytic was lying. The durative notion here is that he was lying for a period of time. So he continued to lie on a stretcher for a period of time. Kat eketo. Imperfect, middle passive, but deponent indicative, third person singular. We scroll down. That is not imperfect. Here's another one. Ergeto. We have the sentence ha'ochlos, the crowd. Ergeto was coming, prosauton, to him. Ergeto is from erchomai, also deponent, a well-known word. So it's from erchomai. The root is erch. So when we form the imperfect, we add the augment. We add a personal ending, a connecting vowel, epsilon, and the third person singular personal ending ta. This is middle or passive. Remember, it takes secondary endings. When a word starts with a vowel and we add the augment, we simply lengthen the initial vowel. So epsilon goes to eta, and the rest is simply put together. Ergeto, he, she, or it was coming to him. Our sentence, kai pas and all, ha'ochlos, the crowd, ergetai pros auton, was coming to him. What is the durative notion? Remember, the imperfect implies ongoing action in the past time. Well, the portrait is the crowds kept coming. So you've got a sense that this wasn't a once-off event. They kept coming to him. People kept coming. Kai edidasken. Edidasken is from didasko. Didasko has an unusual root. We're not going to go into that. If we simply take the present tense stem, which is didask, it's easy to see what we are looking at here as an imperfect active indicative, third person singular. You can see the augment. The moment you see the augment, you know you are looking at one of two things. It's either an aorist indicative or it's an imperfect indicative. The augment is a marker of past time. So it tells us that the action is taking place in the past, and that means it's going to be either an imperfect or an aorist tense. So that's a really good diagnostic. It immediately eliminates most tenses and tells us we are looking at either aorist or imperfect. So we've got the augment. We then have the present tense stem, didask, and we have the connecting vowel, epsilon. There is no personal ending for the third person singular in the imperfect active. There is a movable nu, and in this instance the movable nu is present. So edidasken means he, she or it, in this case he, referring to Jesus. He was teaching them. Edidasken autus. The crowds kept coming to him, and he kept or continued teaching them. So this is an ongoing picture that the crowds were coming and Jesus was teaching, perhaps even a pattern of behavior. Let's scroll down. Sun anekento is our next one. Sun anekento. Let's have a look at it. It's from sun anakemai. There's our verbal root. We saw it just now in a different form. We have two prepositions, sun plus ana plus kemai. So sun and ana are prepositions in compound. Don't worry too much about them. Remember that when we add the augment, here's our augment, our telltale epsilon augment. When we add our augment, it will go after any prepositions in compound. Sun anekento, there's the augment. So we add the augment, we keep the present tense stem k, and what we are adding in this case with kemai, a tad unusual, there's no connecting vowel. We add the secondary endings directly to the tense stem. This is the third person plural, middle passive ending nta. What happens then is that the second alpha on the preposition ana drops out, so we get sun anekento. This means, let's open it and show you, sun anakemai means to recline at the table, so to dine or eat with. This is kai poloi and many telonai, tax collectors, kai hamartoloi, and sinners, sun anekento, were dining to Jesu, with Jesus. Kai polois telonai, kai hamartoloi, sun anekento to Jesu, many tax collectors and sinners were dining. The imperfect is telling us that they continued to dine for a period of time. So the portrait is of ongoing action in the past time. Our key diagnostics: recognize the prepositions in compound. There is, at the end of the prepositions, there is our augment, tells us it's imperfect or possibly aorist. Here is our secondary middle passive endings, third person plural. They were reclining or they were dining. Next, ekoluthun. Ekoluthun is from akolutheo. Let's just put that down. Akoluthe is our verbal root. There's our augment. So the augment is either epsilon. If the word starts with a consonant, the augment is epsilon. But if the word starts with a vowel, the augment is a lengthened vowel. So our augment, let's write it like this, plus akoluthe. Now what's going on here? Well, we can see the personal ending is nu. Nu is the personal ending for the first person singular or the third person plural, and our connecting vowel is going to be omicron. When we put this together, when we add the augment to a word that starts with a vowel, we simply lengthen the vowel. So alpha goes to eta, epsilon and omicron contract to u, so akoluthun. You can think of u for an epsilon contract as the connecting vowel. In effect, it's the stem vowel of the epsilon contract verb that has contracted with the connecting vowel omicron. And the personal ending is nu. Now this could be first person singular, I was following, or it could be third person plural, they were following. Context invariably helps you out. Notice here, gar poloi, for many, were following ekoluthun auto, him. Akolutheo takes a dative direct object. Diagnostics, the augment, in the case of a word that starts with a vowel, it's a lengthened initial vowel. Secondary, middle passive ending, and there's our connecting vowel. You need to recognize u as a contraction. Next one, elegon. Elegon, very, very simple. Elegon is from lego. The tense stem is leg. So we've got augment plus the stem plus connecting vowel omicron plus personal ending nu. This could be first singular or third plural. So this means either I was speaking or it means they were speaking. Let's look to the context for clarity. So we've got kai hoi grammates pharisaion, and the scribes of the Pharisees. Idontes means having seen, hoti esthie metatona martelon, that he is eating with sinners, kai telonon, and tax collectors, were saying, elegon, it's they were saying because the subject is hoi grammates, the scribes. So the scribes were saying, tois mathetais autou, to his disciples. What is the force of the imperfect? It implies some sense of repetition or duration to their saying. It seems likely that it wasn't a one-off thing. They didn't happen to mention in passing on one occasion. Maybe they were continually bickering at the disciples. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it could have that sense of duration. Some sense of duration or repetition to the action. Elegon, augment, connecting vowel, secondary ending. Let's scroll down for another one. There's another case of elegon. Should mark that in green. So, in this case, hoi pharisaioi elegon, the Pharisees were saying auto to him, behold, tipoiusin, why are they doing tois sabasin, on the Sabbath, hauk estin, ex estin, what is not lawful. So this is a third person plural. The nu ending could also be first singular, but the context makes clear what we're looking at. So elegon, imperfect active indicative, third person plural. There's elegen in verse 27. Once again, let's just do this. We're looking at the stem lego. So the stem is leg. Augment plus present tense stem. You can see the connecting vowel in this case is epsilon. This is consistent with the third person singular. There is no personal ending for the three singular, but there's a movable nu, which in this case is present. So epsilon plus leg plus connecting vowel plus no personal ending but movable nu. Elegen, third person singular, he was saying, kai elegen autois, and he was saying to them, to sabasin diaton anthropon egeneto, kai ho anthropos diato sabaton. What's the sense of the duration to this action? We would probably need to read the incident in context. It does imply some sense of duration or repetition to what Jesus was saying. Perhaps he said this to them a number of times, or perhaps it's portraying that it took him some time to explain the significance. Let's carry on. Here's another one. Pareterun. Pareterun. I'm going to double click to find the word. It's paratereo, which means to observe somebody closely. It actually has a few possible ranges of meaning, but we'll take to watch or observe closely. Paratereo, you can see it's an epsilon contract, so we're going to expect some kind of contraction. And para is a preposition in compound. Let's quickly type that out. So we got para plus tere. Let's go and have a look at it. When we add the augment, there it is, pare, pare. So when we add the augment, we do so after the preposition in compound. So effectively what's happening is we got para plus epsilon plus te re. Then we've got the connecting vowel which is appearing as oo. We got the connecting vowel appearing as oo. You can wonder why that is. Well, the answer is the connecting vowel is omicron and the personal ending is nu, which is the personal ending for the the first person singular or the three plural. And of course then what happens is par, the alpha drops out when the augment is added, and epsilon omicron contract to u, pare te run. Our diagnostics, there's the first one. The augment tells us that we are looking at an imperfect or an aorist, secondary passive ending, and the connecting vowel, which in this case is a contraction. Here's our next one, esiopone. This one's not as readily apparent because it's from an alpha contract. If I double click, you'll see that our word is siopao. There's the alpha contract. Alpha contracts are slightly more difficult to recognize than others. So our word stem is siopa. Augment tells me past time, either imperfect or aorist. There's my personal ending. You know by now that's going to be first singular or third plural. So what we've done is we've added epsilon and then siopa. We've added omicron and nu, connecting vowel and personal ending for the imperfect, and alpha omicron contract to omega, esiopone, and it means, sorry, let's just find it again, hoi de esiopone, means to be silent. So hoi is plural, nominative. Is this a first person singular or a third person plural answer? It's something to do with hoi, which must mean they. Hoi de siopon, and they were keeping silent. It would seem they remained silent for a little while after Jesus performed this miracle. So he kept them quiet for at least a period of time. Let's go look for our next one. It's none of those. Here's our next one, echon. Now, echon is very important. It's from echo, echo. So it looks like the stem is ech, right? You look at it, you think the stem is going to be ech. Actually, the verbal root is sech, sech, and the sigma drops out in lots of forms. So what happens here with echo is that we add the epsilon in we're adding the augment, which is not obvious. It's not obvious when you look at A that you've got an augment there. But let me show you what's happening. So we add the augment, then the root, right? Then the connecting vowel, omicron in this case, and nu, which is first singular or third plural. Now what happens, you've seen this before, intervocalic sigma. Sigma doesn't like to stand between two vowels. So the sigma drops out. So we get echon, and then predictably the two epsilons contract to a. So there's quite a lot happening there. It's an irregular form, but echo is a very common word, so it's worth the effort to try and remember it. Echon means they had or they were having. It would have some sense of duration to bring out the force of the imperfect. There's a few more here. Etheorun, etheorun from theoreo. It's an epsilon contract. Let's have a look at it. So we got theore. There's our augment. Very easy to see. We would have added a connecting vowel omicron, nu, which you know, first singular, third plural, and then epsilon and Omicron contract to U. Etheorun, it means either I was watching or observing or seeing, or they were seeing. Let's see if we can figure out which one it is. Hotan, when, auton, theorun, it sounds like they were seeing him. Etheorun, augment, tells me it's imperfect or aorist. Connecting vowel, personal ending. Pros epipton, you can see pros is a preposition in compound, so our word is prospipto, which means that our present tense stem is prospipt. Prospipt. Let's put in pros. We added the augment. You can see it. Don't have to be a rocket scientist. There's the augment. Right. And then pipt. You can see we've got connecting vowel omicron, personal ending nu. This means prospipto means to fall down before or fall down at somebody's feet. So pros epipton, there's nothing to this, by the way. We simply add the parts together. Pros epipton, they were falling at his feet, with some sense of repetition or duration. Pros epipton auto, they were falling down to him, meaning before him. Kai ekrazon from krazo, to call out. Notice, augment, connecting vowel, personal ending, we're looking at an imperfect. Let's have a look at it. It's from krazo. Our stem is kraz. By the way, anytime you see a stem that ends in kraz, you're looking at a present tense stem. That zeta will disappear in the other tense forms, and only the present and the imperfect are built on the present tense stem. So this kraz would also be an indicative or an indicator that we are looking at either a present or an imperfect. So if I know it's a present or an imperfect and I see an augment, guess what? It's an imperfect. So what's happening? Our root or stem is kraz. E is the augment, connecting vowel, personal ending, ekrazon, and they were crying out. Krazo, to cry out. So we've got 3 in a row here. Etheorun, they were beholding auton, him. Pros epipton, they were prostrating themselves to him. Kai ekrazon, and they were crying out, legonta, saying, hotisue, hohios tu theu, you are the Son of God. We'll try and finish this chapter. Let me scroll down. There's another one. Aethelen. Oi, and another one. Etima. I'll come back to that one. Let's quickly do Aethelen. It's from thelo, but what's not readily apparent is that the actual stem is ethel. Ethel. I'm not sure why that is. It just is. The initial epsilon drops out in a number of the tense forms, but the actual stem is ethelon, so we add our augment plus thel plus connecting vowel plus movable nu, because there's no personal ending for the third person singular, and then, when I add the augment to something starting with an epsilon, the vowel lengthens, so I get aethelen. This means he was wanting. He was wanting. He was wanting or wishing. Let's quickly go back to epetima, which is also imperfect. It's from epitimao. Notice that it's an alpha contract with a preposition in compound. So we've got epitima as our stem. We're going to add the augment ya. Now, anytime you've got a preposition in compound that ends with a vowel and you add the augment, the vowel that ends the preposition is going to fall away. Epe, tima. So then I've got tima. What I would have added here is epsilon, which is a third person singular connecting vowel. Remember, the third person singular has an optional, it has no personal ending, but it has an optional movable nu, which is not present. So no personal ending. Now what happens is the iota on epi drops out, and alpha epsilon contract to alpha. So epetima from epi means to command, I think, to rebuke. To rebuke, censure, or speak seriously. Epitimao, kai pola, epetima, and many things he rebuked to them. Epetima, he was rebuking. So you've got a sense of duration that he continued to rebuke in some sense. Epetima, how do I know it's imperfect? Well, the preposition in compound, if you can spot that ep is from epi, and you then see that it's epe, you'll recognize that that's an augment. I've got a connecting vowel. Actually, the connecting vowel with no personal ending is a clue that it's a third person singular, but it's an alpha contract, so there are a few changes that happened over here. You need to recognize those. Let's scroll down a little bit later. We've got elegon again. We've already talked about this. Augment, connecting vowel, first singular or third plural personal ending. It's active, so they were saying or I was saying. There's elegon again, same thing. Here's elegen. In the first singular or third plural, the connecting vowel is omicron, and the nu is the personal ending. But with elegen, which is a three singular, this nu is actually just a movable nu. The connecting vowel is epsilon, and there's no personal ending, but we've got a movable nu, which is optional. So elegen, he was saying. So, or speaking in this case. So, the idea, elegen autus to them in parabolais, in parables. He was speaking to them in parables. Let's see if we've got any more. There's another one, katheto. This is like kemai. It's a little bit unusual because we add our personal endings directly onto the tense stem. There's no connecting vowel that we see. So kathemai, kathemai meaning to sit. Let's have a quick look at it. The kath, by the way. Alright, so we got kathemai. We take the present tense ending off. You can see augment, kathe. There's no connecting vowel, and we've added the secondary passive third person singular ending to, ekatheto. He was sitting. He was sitting. Can't be present because it's got the augment. So kathemai, I sit, ekatheto, he was sitting. And that brings us to the end of chapter 3. I think that's enough. We're going to stop over there. So when we are looking at imperfects, the diagnostics are the augment, which identifies it as either imperfect or aorist. It's going to be built on the present tense stem in all cases. Sometimes that's identical to the root and sometimes it's different, but it's built on the present tense stem. And then we're going to have the connecting vowel and the secondary, depending on the voice, active or passive, personal endings. These are the diagnostics for the imperfect. They're not too hard to identify. It's continuous action in the past time. Trust that's a helpful exercise. Try as you work with imperfects to get used to looking for the diagnostics of the augment, present tense stem, connecting vowel, appropriate personal ending.